Yes, there has been an allegation that I funded demonstrators in Makueni and also from Makueni to Nairobi. I want to tell Junet Mohammed, first and foremost, he cannot mention my name on the floor of the House without a substantive motion. And if he has one and he has the evidence, let him do a substantive motion, and I will come to Parliament and respond. I also want to say that if his information is as defective as I heard, and if he was all the allegations against me, which I know, and the people of Makueni know, that I don't pay goons to do anything, or I don't pay people to go to Mandamano. Mandamano is a voluntary thing, and I believe all the Mandamano, which was in 27 counties and more, if they were funded, then it would be billions of shillings. And I doubt whether anybody in opposition is likely to use that strategy. People went to demonstrate on their own, peaceful demonstrations, and the police disrupted them. In the counties where the police did not disrupt, like Meru or Kitui, and worked with the people, there were no damages. Damages come when police, instead of following the law, first do a proclamation. If the peaceful demonstrations turn chaotic, the law requires that you stop the meeting, announce it loud and clear, and give people enough time to clear.
They promised to stop Harambes in order to reduce theft of public funds by state officers. But this is still the order of the day. I'll give you an example. The current deputy president is going around the country donating 2 million in every constituency. Simple mathematics. 2 million per constituency will end up being 580 million when he goes around the whole country, which we are expecting them to do because we don't think they are doing this in a segmented manner. Now, just the other day, we asked him to declare his wealth because he was being vetted by the Parliamentary Appointments Committee. And we know that with what he gave us as his value, his wealth, he cannot afford that. So what we are asking is why is it still trying to portray opulence, which is one of the things that the youth say they do not want to see. Now we are asking that instead of the name calling and the finger pointing, this regime must deal with the problem at hand. Reduce the lies, make proper plans, and address the youth unemployment problem, which is actually the one at the heart and the center of all these demonstrations. If you do not listen to these highly educated and disenfranchised youth and continue using force to silence them, how will you address their concerns? It's not about the political class. It's not about Rigathi Gachagua. It's not about Kalonzo Musyoka. It's not about David Maraga. It's not about Fred Matiang'i. It's not about us as elected leaders. It's about the future of Kenya, which is vested heavily in our youth.
When you say now people don't go to police station, anybody go there should be shot dead, then I think that is very misled, and this is why Kenyans have a problem, and that's why Kenyans told Murkomen on his face they are one term. And the Kenyans must really organize themselves this time. Last time, 8 million Kenyans did not vote. We want all registered Kenyans to come out in large numbers and vote this government out.
We are here to condole with the families and friends of the young Kenyans who lost their lives on June 25th, 2 days ago, when they came out to commemorate their friends and comrades who lost their lives last year while protesting the draconian finance bill. We also want to condole with the families and friends who have lost loved ones in the previous years as a result of police brutality. Would like to offer our sympathies to those who are injured, some who are still in hospitals nursing serious injuries inflicted by police bullets. We also send our sympathies to those who were abducted and released, and ask that those who have never been returned and the ones abducted recently, as recent as a few days ago, be returned to their families. The life of a parent whose loved one is unaccounted for is totally unbearable. In fact, sometimes it might be better to receive a body and bury than to live with the uncertainty, which of course has no closure. Now, during the recent demonstrations and the past demonstrations, we saw massive destruction of public and personal property, including looting and vandalism of shops and even banks. This has always happened whenever there are demonstrations, but it is an act of criminal elements who take advantage of peaceful demonstrations to steal. We condemn in the strongest terms possible the acts of those criminal elements and totally distance ourselves from their actions. The National Police Service is highly capable of reviewing CCTV surveillance and arresting all those criminal elements and bringing them to book. Now, Article 37 of our Constitution allows demonstrations as long as they are peaceful and the participants unarmed. It is the duty of police to disarm any criminals and use the necessary force to stop any destruction or looting during the demonstrations. In fact, this is the reason why the police are always informed of any demonstrations. Now, we were perturbed when we saw the leadership of Parliament debate a motion whose draft was very heavy on the matter of destruction of property, but completely silent on the loss of lives yesterday and in the past. The real intention of the motion was to hide behind parliamentary privilege and malign the names of leaders who are not part of the broad-based government and those who choose to commemorate the Kenyan Gen Zs who died in June last year at the precincts of the House of the People's Representatives, that is Parliament. Members made reckless comments concerning planning and funding of the demonstrations. They shouted themselves hoarse about attempts to overthrow the current regime and made very unfortunate threats against our leaders. On the matters raised yesterday, we want to remind them that the leaders who have been quoted to incite violence are all part of the Kenya Kwanza regime. Our current sitting governor was quoted threatening he will stamp his authority on demonstrators who attempt to destroy property. Last week, the people who came out to demonstrate to ask for justice for Albert Ojwang, who was killed in a police cell, were beaten mercilessly by goons escorted by police in full glare of the media. A member of parliament from Rift Valley and another one from South Nyanza were in newspaper headlines threatening to deal with demonstrators. One actually said that he would transport thugs from his region to deal with the demonstrators on 25th of June. He insinuated that if the rungu-wielding goons had caused some pain, his thugs would be more lethal. The chairperson of the President's Council of Economic Advisors told demonstrators that before anyone left their home to go for peaceful demonstrations, they must say their final goodbyes to their friends and family. But interestingly, no single individual outside the broad-based government made any threats of any nature whatsoever, other than to stand in solidarity with the youth in their grief. It is interesting to note that none of these individuals have been summoned to write any statements in any police station and to explain why they're inciting violence. Much as we are appalled at the accusations and counter-accusations, we are curious as to why the Ruto regime decided to use the Communications Authority to switch off media stations, which was an affront on the Constitution of Kenya 2010 article is it 48 on the freedom of the media. Was it that this regime did not want what was it that this regime did not want Kenyan citizens to see? We believe that this is definitely connected with the atrocities visited upon our citizens and must be condemned. We shall not allow a clawback on the rights enshrined in our Constitution. Could the shutdown be interpreted as anarchy hour? Kenyans need answers. Now, in the comments made in Parliament, there were very many ethnic insensitive statements. This country is not ready for any ethnic profiling, which could lead us down the path we traveled in 2007-2008 when we had the post-election violence. As leaders, we are determined to ensure that the country remains united and we all act as one. The comments made insinuated that the victims of the demonstrations were from a specific ethnic group. This is very careless and extremely reckless and should be condemned by all Kenyans of goodwill. Fellow Kenyans, our country, our home is not at peace. We have been experiencing difficult times brought about by the various decisions made by our present government. The very many promises made during the last campaigns and the excessive taxes imposed since 2023 have been the trigger of anger by Kenyans. Kenyans were promised heaven on earth, but what we are literally seeing is that we are in hell. When it came to a head in 2024 and the finance bill was withdrawn, more promises were made by the president himself. The regime promised to reduce government wastage and expenditure. Since then, The number of advisors in the offices of CSs, in the office of the president, have gone up. And the government is still spending on luxury items like renovations in State House, which is costing billions, while the expenditure in more important items like education and health are not going up in similar proportions.
And therefore, if the only way to deal with maandamano is to begin with, tear gas or gunshots, then the police is really has misled itself, and they're the ones who, of course, saw the destruction you have seen. I had information from Matu that Kenyans just bypassed the police station, and an unprovoked officer decided to shoot, and that's when hell broke loose. In a Mali, where 3 people were killed, some officers who were in plain clothes, suspected to be of DCI and were with a Subaru, are the one who came out of the Subaru and fired, carelessly, and killed young people even who are not in the demonstration. And that's when trouble began. And therefore, we can blame the destruction into the mismanagement and personal decisions by individual police officers. And probably, if Kenyans are allowed to demonstrate peacefully, I am very sure there will be no destruction of any magnitude. So this blame game of blaming so and so is so misplaced. If it is to go by my case, I did not spend a single coin on any demonstrations, whether in Nairobi or in Makueni, and I do not influence people, by money to do things. People do things because they believe in a cause and they believe in something. So if the information is as defective as the information about myself, then the government has totally misled Junet Mohammed. The government has, the intelligence and where they get information has totally misled William Ruto and his government. And therefore, that misinformation is a clear indication that they are not in touch with the ground. They have completely isolated themselves from the people. They need to go back to the people and hear why people are complaining. People are very annoyed with the 60 deaths, of which the only inquest we have of Rex Masai is an effort to cover up, the killer of Rex Masai, who is known very well by Kenyans. And therefore, we are also aware in that Rex Masai case, witnesses have been frustrated. And it is the only case going on. What about the other 60 or so? What about the disappearances? In Makueni, we have 2 people who have disappeared, and we have 2 deaths from the Mlolongo 4 who were found, brutally murdered, and the registration at the city mortuary had been concealed for 30 good days till we went to court, and their bodies were found. So those parents have not gotten any reparation so far. There is no plan or strategy of compensating those who have been hurt, or even dealing with them in one way or another by the government, meaning that the government clearly instructed their abduction and clearly instructed their killing, and that's why they do not want to compensate at all. No one wants to bring any coup into this Kenya. There is no one with that capacity. There is no one with that authority. The Constitution of Kenya cannot be suspended. The Constitution of Kenya talks about removal of a president after 5 years through an election. The only other removal available is by resignation or impeachment by the House. The moment that is not applicable, what Kenyans can do, and that's what they are doing, is to prepare. Let the young people register as Kenyans. Let them have an ID. Let them also register as voters when it comes. Let them vote in 2027, and at the same time protect the vote so that it cannot be stolen. It is the only hope President Ruto and his people have to come back to power. We have heard Ruto himself say he will not hand over power to the opposition. We have heard the bravado and the hard talk from the leaders of majority of the 2 houses, from the